Thanks a lot. If you actually listen to what the president of ALIA, Giancarlo Michelone, tells as the story of my arrival in Trieste, he persuaded people that he persuaded me that the beaches of Trieste were far superior to those of California, and that's how he got me to come here. Quick question: has everybody in the audience seen the film Cool Hand Luke? No. That means I have to do an impersonation. There's a moment in the film where the prison guard has just beaten Paul Newman about the head and he's fallen into a ditch. And the prison guard, in true prison guard style, assesses the situation and says, what we've got here is a failure to communicate. Now, what he means by that is, it's all Paul Newman's fault. Cool Hand Luke's fault. That basically, he's unable to receive, to understand the simple communications of the prison guard, and therefore he's misbehaving and deserves to be beaten about the head. I'm going to talk about technology transfer because I think what we have here is a failure to communicate. I'm not going to beat anyone about the head. Well, not yet. But I would like to draw your attention to the fact that simply stating that we have a failure to communicate doesn't actually solve the problem. And particularly when both sides of the equation cite the problem as the other side's failure to communicate, we really have got a communication problem. I'm going to talk about technology transfer, which is summed up in this little graphic, because what I'm going to talk about is going from ideas through research and development into industrialization to take products to market, that means to people, and turn them into value. Sounds easy to say fast. And just to prove that I'm bang up to date with our young speakers' hacking mentality, I'll quote one of my favorite poets, Rudyard Kipling, from 1902, who gave us a very succinct way of focusing on the key issues whenever we're dealing with any argument. And this is a line from a poem that's very often used by journalists as a mnemonic, as a way of remembering what the key elements of a story should be. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. Now typically, if you apply that to any news story, you've got all of the elements you need to tell the story succinctly and in a gripping way that will hold the attention of your audience. This isn't really a news story, so I'm just going to kind of make up some questions that use each of those terms. I'm going to ask what makes people creative. Luckily for me, the answer to that question has already been very ably demonstrated. I'm going to ask why is research and development important. I hope I don't need to spend too long on that, because I hope that most of the audience will know that already. I'm going to ask, when is invention not enough? That might cause a little bit more of a stir. I'm going to talk about how we create value, and where do we turn ideas into products. And finally, I'm going to ask who determines the value of an innovation. First question, what makes people creative? Well, luckily for me, I don't need to spend too much time on that, because as has already been very ably explained, we're born creative. In fact, what happens is the reverse. Often the creativity is effectively knocked out of us. So all we need for creativity is an environment that nurtures and nourishes the creativity that we're all born with. Creativity is a naturally occurring human resource. So I urge all of those who work in the education establishments, all of those who work in companies where young people join with a creative spirit, to adopt this simple message: don't kill the creativity. Just let the creativity flow. If you foster it, it will flourish. Why is research and development important? Because creativity on its own actually isn't enough. Creativity on its own gives us lots of new ideas, but they're not filtered. They're not processed. They don't turn into something concrete, into something real. So we need research and development because it's a process through which those ideas can be refined and abstract concepts can become reality. When is invention not enough. Well, invention is a word that's often used to describe a little bit more than what invention actually is. Invention is creating something new. And creating something new sounds like a good idea. Again, the creativity thing is a good idea. But just creating something new doesn't really tell us the whole story. Invention is never enough, because if we just create newness, we haven't qualified that newness, and we haven't come up with something that genuinely adds value. Innovation is the creation of new value. And if we create new value, it means that we have added to the well-being of the world. Sometimes you can also get rich, not a bad thing. But value is actually not synonymous with money. It's a very, very common mistake to equate value with money. Why is it a common mistake? Because that's why we invented money, so that we could use it to measure value and to make it easier to transfer value from one party to another. It's easier for me to go down to Corso d'Italia with my wallet than it is for me to carry a couple of goats and a sheep and a couple of chickens and barter for the goods that I want to buy. So money helps, but money is a reflection of value. It's not what value is. Value is how much I want something. And how much I want something is based on my determination of how much that something will improve the quality of my life. How do we create value? Well, we start with creativity. We take that creative impulse to generate ideas. We filter those ideas. We use research and development processes to filter those ideas and determine which of those ideas we can take forward in a constructive way to create something that could be useful. And then we try to make sure that we take that something to the point where it can be produced, delivered, and used by end users. So we create value when we address a genuine market need, a real market need, not one that we've invented. With a new approach, that means it's innovative, that provides benefits to the customer. So key element there, the customer has to want the benefit. I can't tell the customer that it's a benefit to them. And those benefits should outweigh the costs to the customer. And they should be better than those offered by competitors or any alternatives. If I can do that, then the customer will want what I have to offer. So if I can take a creative impulse that meets in a new way a genuine need in the market and deliver a product, then the market will appreciate that product and will see value. There's a little credit there to a book called Innovation, the 5 Disciplines for Creating What Customers Want. I should specify that that's not a quotation from the book, because I don't want to get sued, because it's probably a very ham-fisted summary of what the book says. But it summarizes the key elements of the messages of the 5 disciplines. Kurt Carlson, that's one of the authors of that book, is the president and CEO of SRI International, which is an organization I had a little to do with in California. Where do we turn ideas into products? This one was a bit of a stretch, trying to think of a where. Well, where we turn ideas into products is in companies. And I know that for those people who work in research organizations, in universities, in research centers and institutes, the word company sometimes is a dirty word. Business is that grubby end of the spectrum where money changes hands and where people do things in a very applied way, where they want to take products to market and actually sell them. Well, that's what happens in companies, and it happens in companies because that's the right place for it to happen. It shouldn't happen in universities that are doing pure research. But it has to happen somewhere, and the best place for it to happen is in companies. And the reason that that's the best place for it to happen is that companies are set up to do that. They're set up to take a creative impulse and turn it into a physical product that you can sell to a customer. And to do all of that in as efficient a way as possible, adding as much value as possible, so that when the customer recognizes that value creation by paying for the product, They pay enough for that product for there to be a profit margin that makes the whole process viable from start to finish. And so long as some of that profit margin ultimately flows all the way back along the value chain to the research organizations that came up with the idea, everyone can benefit from that process. So from idea to industrialization is a long process. It's not always arduous, that's probably a bit of a stretch. But it's usually pretty tough. And it needs the drive, discipline, and determination of an entrepreneur in a thriving company. Why do I say the drive, discipline, and determination? Well, it's not because you don't get drive, discipline, and determination in research organizations. You do. But they're usually targeted towards different objectives. The drive to find an answer to a problem that no one's ever answered before. The determination to keep on trying with a series of experiments despite a series of failures, or negative results, as we like to call them in research. The discipline to continue to log results and to keep good records. All of these things exist in the research world. But in the business world, what that means is working to deadlines, delivering on time, working just in time. And those are disciplines that are different from the disciplines that we typically find in a necessarily free research environment. My personal belief is that we don't need to change researchers into businessmen or businessmen into researchers. We need to harness the skills of both sets. Who determines the value? This is an easy one, so I should actually ask for some audience participation. Who determines value? Let's see if I got it right. The customer. Always the customer. Only the customer. Did I leave anybody out there? Did I mention that it's the customer? Why is it the customer that determines value? Because it's only the customer that's going to put their hand in their pocket and pay for the product. However much I say my invention is worth means nothing unless I can find a customer who agrees with me. So it is always and only the customer who determines the value of the proposition. Now, I could spend another couple of days talking about how this process should work. How we go from research to the development of technology, how that technology adds functionality, and that functionality provides benefits, and the benefits can be inserted into products, and the products can be presented to potential clients, and those clients may recognize the value. But what I want to draw your attention to is that that's a very simple, very straightforward chain, and it doesn't actually have a single step that's conceptually difficult to understand. Can we all agree that that's actually pretty straightforward? You may actually think it's too straightforward. Why is this guy just bombarding me with inanities and stupid comments like this? Where it gets a little tricky is when people try to go from here to there without passing through the intermediary steps. Or when people say, this is what I want, why are you talking to me about this? What happens is there's a disconnect. If you don't follow each of these steps and you don't have all of the skill sets necessary to make each step, often things fall through the cracks. And where things typically fall through the cracks is in this area here. Because typically, researchers talk about this. They talk about the research that I'm doing, how it's groundbreaking research, how it breaks new boundaries, how it delivers knowledge that the human race has never had before. And that may enable me to develop a new technology that's absolutely incredible. Now, that's all well and good, but if I'm up here talking to my clients about the benefits that I can bring to them, they're not remotely interested in how clever I am. They're interested in how much better their life can be because I deliver benefits to them with my new products. Similarly, if they're up here talking about products and benefits and have very little interest in technology and research, they're probably not going to be at the front of the queue voting to give more money to research institutions. They're probably not going to sign up to send money every month to research institutions because they just like the sound of them. So if the people here don't have any incentive to send money to the people here, and the people here don't have any interest in what the people here want, it's very unlikely that this process is going to work. So what we need, if we want to have innovation, is we need genuine communication. And the communication works best when it goes step by step. And when someone in the middle here joins the dots and explains that the technology that research and science and engineering can provide is useful when it has functionality that delivers benefits, and when those benefits are the benefits that clients want to see in the products and services that they're willing to pay for. Because when all of those steps are joined up, the people up here recognize the value of the product because it delivers a benefit to them. And because they recognize it, they're willing to pay money for it. And if they pay money to the people who deliver the products, and the people who deliver the products that have those benefits pay money to the people who develop the technologies that deliver the functionality, and the people that have that technology recognize the work done by the researchers who develop the intellectual property, everybody gets to eat. And that's always a good thing. So I leave you with the thought that maybe if we can concentrate not on one piece of this chain, but on the whole chain, and if we can remember that it's a continuous line that goes all the way from the idea to the marketplace, and we recognize that when that line gets broken, somebody doesn't get paid, somebody doesn't get to eat. If we want a system that's going to work, we need to make sure that that line remains unbroken. Myself and my colleagues tend to work very much in the middle of this process, trying to make sure that that line doesn't get broken. It's something that's done by people in technology transfer in various different organizations. I can recognize some of the other organizations in the territory that do the same thing. What we hope to do is to help the people at this end of the spectrum connect to the people at this end of the spectrum, and to keep that line unbroken. I suggest most strongly to all of you, whichever piece of that line you're involved with, recognize the value that's contributed by the people up and downstream. Try to keep that line unbroken, and try to make sure that we all benefit from an enhanced quality of life that comes from creativity providing new benefits through technologies that provide new functionality and make lives better for everyone concerned. Thanks for your time.